I've been talking to my CPA about just different. You prompted that in your last or the last session I was in where you shared some CPA resources, and I was like, I haven't talked to my CPA since like last tax return, so this is a good reminder to get after it. We talked about real estate professional status, and I did like a deep dive on the internet on what that means, what's required, what's not required. Basically, from his perspective, it sounds like it's just kind of a check of a box, but if I get audited, there's some documentation that I need to be able to produce to show that I worked a certain number of hours or I dedicated, X efforts or whatever.
Mhm.
Was just curious if you're using that at all or if you've heard of anybody else doing that.
Yeah,
Or
so I qualify as real estate professional status because I'm doing it essentially full time.
right.
Now, full time looks different for me because I'm not, I don't ever want to work 40 hours a week again. Um, but it's the lion's share. In fact, it's all of everything that I do professionally. Maybe 5% would be ballet for little girls, in a support role to my lovely wife, but everything else is real estate. So for me, this is a little bit more cut and dry. For you, uh, I guess I would get some guidance from your CPA on what, of course, the tax benefits are more advantageous when you can list yourself as real estate professional status. Um, but what I would ask is, what is the magnitude of those benefits, which I know you've done a little bit of research already, and then what can I do to make myself real estate professional status if indeed it is way more advantageous? On the other side is, what you can also do is, if you can't claim all of those deductions, and it's only a certain percentage of them, make sure that you keep record of them, because at some point you're going to get to the point where you say, hey, I'm done with this, and now I'm real estate professional status, I've got enough passive income coming in, and then at that point you're literally going to pay no taxes for like 5 years because you'll have it all just stored up. Now the IRS will have borrowed that money from you for 5 years or whatever it is, but you'll at least get to claim it at that point. So have you had that conversation with your CPA about what it takes for you to actually be able to, you like Matt in your position, be able to claim professional status?
Basically being able to produce some sort of record that shows that I put about 750 hours towards this a year. Um, the he was like a little vague when he said he was like the challenge is you have a W-2 job. So let me back up. My goal is to totally agree. I could take passive income and then push it down the line, right? For when I do this full time.
Mhm.
And that's awesome. And I'll totally do that.
Yeah, it's a good
But I
worst
don't want
case
to pay any
scenario.
taxes. Yeah, I don't want to
Right.
pay any taxes today either on my
Right.
W-2. So that's where I'm like diving into this now versus like waiting down the line. Um, the other thing he said that I need to dive in deeper, and I'm talking to that lady that you recommended next week. So maybe I'll get some more insight then. But was potentially having my wife be real estate professional status, which again would be a combination of hours. She would have to put so many hours into this because she doesn't have a job today. She's
Mhm.
raising her child. Um, but the net basically was it's kind of a vague thing. It seems like via tax code, meaning that you just have to say you've done 750 hours is 2 to 3 hours a day.
Mhm.
If you divide that out by 365, right? Like it's not anything unrealistic to say like, yeah, I've spent a couple hours a day for the
Mhm.
last year, doing
Yeah.
this.
Well,
So
especially because there's going to be some days that you don't do anything. And then there are
mhm,
other days where you spend a good chunk of it. You've got some random Saturday where you spend 4 hours trolling through
yeah,
stuff while you've got football on or whatever in the background. I like the idea of having your wife be a real estate professional status. Now, that doesn't work for everybody just because some people, their spouse has a full-time gig as well. But in your position, I think that could make a lot of sense. And then as you guys file jointly, you'd be able to apply it.
yeah. Uh, Absolutely. And then the flip side of that was being able to funnel some of the income to like reduce my income tax burden. So it gets complicated, but was just curious if you'd done that with when you were W-2'd. And it sounds like you do it now, which makes total sense because that is your full
Yeah, I
time.
mean, well, honestly, when I was W-2, I didn't know a whole lot. Like I went to my CPA, I got my first property, and this was a live-in property. In fact, you've seen it. Um, Like we actually lived in that property. And so I didn't think I had any tax advantages. And I sat down with a CPA. I said, yeah, I'm renting out the other rooms. And she said, oh, you've got a lot that's deductible then. And so like keep track of all the appliances you buy and all of the improvements you do and all of those different things. And so I was like, oh, awesome. And so the next year, so that year, I think I paid $1,500 in tax or $500 in taxes, something smaller. The next year I got cut a check for $5,500, getting that money back. And so I'm sure I wasn't leveraging it to the max. But it was definitely a happy experience when I got that check. But then let's see, then I acquired a couple more, like 2 more that next year, and I got about the same, a little bit higher check returned to me. Yeah, and then really, I think the next year is when I quit. So I don't have when I left my W-2, retired, like I don't have a ton of the W-2 track record on the tax side as far as maximizing that amount. And at the time, as a single dude, so it would be hard for me to, wiggle things around. Though honestly, I was probably, hopefully my previous, employer doesn't find it, but I was probably doing more work for real estate than I really was. When it comes down to effectiveness, I was just like so driven by this real estate stuff that it was just occupying my mind all the time. But yeah, so that's something there. I hope that the real estate professional status for your wife will work out, because that would allow you to offset a lot more.
That's the goal. I don't want to pay taxes again.
Yeah, ever again.
Ever again.
Well, and the nice part is, once you get to the point where, your mortgage is going to stay flat, your mortgage payment, because it's a fixed mortgage. But over time, rent goes up. Historically, aggregated across the United States, year over year, rent has never gone down. I just learned this a few weeks ago, which blew my mind. In fact, no, I learned it at the Bigger Pockets conference. One of the chief presenters, or the keynote presenters, showed a graph about it. And so that rent is only going to go up. So if you're renting something out at $1,200 and your mortgage is $400 a month, in 5 years, you're probably going to be renting it out for, I don't know, $2,000, $2,200, something like that. And I mean, it may be even more because of inflation, but your mortgage still stays the same. So you're going to end up with more cash flow. So at some point, you're going to cross into you will have a taxable exposure. And at that point, you just buy an asset that will cash flow you less. And it's more of an appreciation play. You write off more, it's more of a tax hedge. So then you get the appreciation play from that property, and you pay less taxes on your cash flow. So this is the game part that I just love about real estate. Like Mark Cuban says that business is the most competitive, most difficult game in the world. And I love that aspect of it, trying to figure out how to make all the puzzle pieces work.